Without doubts, I think it's by far the best league in Europe.
How dare you score like that in the Premier League?
Mission accomplished in the Premier League. The American.
So we won't move on to Southampton and see what they did first. Gally, I will want to start with you on this one. They do make some moves, nothing like too over the top in terms of like, money spent, but there are some pieces added in there. How do you think this will change Southampton this season compared to last?
Well, first off, I really like the move for Gavin Bazuni. He was on loan last year. He has huge upside. He's basically in competition with Kelleher, Cayman Kelleher, to be the starting goalkeeper for the Irish international team. Southampton made this move because they thought that they needed to improve. Obviously, they had McCarthy lost his job to Fraser Forster down the stretch last year. Forster's moved on to become the backup at Tottenham. So I think that's a great move for them to get a young international level keeper who is definitely one of the hotter names in Europe on the rise. So I think that's a really, really great move. I think Romeo Lavia, the young defensive midfielder from Man City, who just couldn't sniff his way into Pep's side, but has a lot of really good upside as well. I think that could be a surprisingly great move because, Oriol Romeo is really getting old and he's getting up in age, but Southampton really struggles when he's not on the pitch from a defensive standpoint. And I think they needed to improve in that area. So they get a little stronger in the midfield. They get a better keeper, but it's still Southampton. Again, I come back like a broken record. I question whether or not they're going to score enough goals. And I question whether or not Ralph Hasenhüttl won't have 2 or 3 7-9-0 losses that seem to just kind of derail them, and they go on these long, barren stretches without points. So I don't see a lot of positives coming out of this window for Southampton.
What do you allude that to, Bickler? Like some of those like big losses, because Gally's right. It's almost like they're due once a season to do that. Is it just the style, or like once it gets loose,
that's
it
not
just
a
goes
style.
downhill?
I think that's just a straight up. I think that's a mentality. I think they've got the mentality that they're going to hang in and try to get points, and if they feel like they're not going to get points, they fold up shop. So I mean, I think that's a pretty legitimate criticism of the manager when you've got a team that is prone to that. So here's the interesting thing about this window for me. I actually love the players. I hate the strategy. I think that if you look at those top 4 on that list, you talk about the French striker, 19 years old, the German international center back, Romeo Lavia that Gally got into, and Bazunu. Those 4 players were considered towards the top now or in very, very recent time of their respective positions as prospects. All 4 of those were considered essentially blue chippers. And I love those players because of their tremendous upside. All 4 of them had the potential to be elite or world-class in their respective positions. The problem I have with it is that doesn't answer your immediate need now for those 4 players. Like, this is a side that needs veteran leadership and stability now, especially across the back line. And that doesn't do it for you. And to me, this is a transfer strategy built for a year in the championship, which if you're a Southampton supporter, you cannot love.
So I'm kind of like torn on this one because I see these moves and I agree with what you're saying in terms of like investing in youth. I just worry about, how fast that will happen and the situation they were in. It's not a team that was as confident, as comfortable, I guess I should say. Confident is not the right word. As comfortable in, Premier League last year. So I felt like they needed a few key pieces that really did not get added. I mean, when you look at people who left, I don't think there's anything that is very concerning. Shane Long is finally has left the building after like 18 decades or so. But aside from like, you don't see any big losses. I just don't know. Did they do enough to improve to be comfortable this season in Premier League? I mean, I don't think any of us see them, like making a run for like a European spot or anything like that. But do you think they've improved enough where they can be comfortable?
No, I think this side is absolutely targeted to be in the relegation battle. I think they are this year's leads. They could really take like 4 or 5 steps back in the table. And I think that will prove harder and harder for them. And, to Paul's point, we talked about the mentality of the big losses. And it always amazed me that the manager has survived 2 7-0s and a 9-0 defeat all at home. Like, so on one level, it made me think like maybe these guys really believe in this manager and the leadership believes in it and the right guy is there. But I don't know that he's a guy that's going to get them out of tough struggles. So I could see them struggling early, not scoring goals, not having guys fit in, and ultimately ending up making like the break glass, hire Sam Allardyce type of move. And I just don't think those relegation specialists work anymore in today's game with the tactics and the way the players operate. And I just think Southampton's in for a really, really tough year. And, I don't want all 3 teams that came up to go back down. And if you ask me right now, what existing Premier League team has the best chance to go down from last season, I would tell you it's Southampton.
So that's an interesting point, Bickler, that, despite those losses, they hung on to their manager. And you could kind of, I love playing devil's advocate. You could always say, hey, we've had this in the past. The team plays for him and they bounce back. We've bounced back in the past after a loss like that. And they have. I mean, sometimes, yeah, like, the form might go down, but in the long run, I think it's hard to deny that the players play for him. What do you think? I mean, what do you think the mindset is then? So I guess the good thing is when a loss like that happens, you don't need to press the panic button because you can be like, been there, done that. We got in like our butt kicked before. But at the same time, when it happens repeatedly, kind of like what you were talking about earlier, you have to put it a little bit on the manager in terms of the mentality that the team has.
Yeah, and I do. I think the Southampton brass is probably looking for a fresh start with a healthy squad to see if they can pull out of a nosedive. And I just feel like Southampton has been a team with its chin above water for a long time, trending in the wrong direction. If you look at last year, they finished the last 6 without a win. I think they lost their last 4. I just think it's trending down. And like I said, this transfer window to me is not encouraging. And it's kind of funny because I actually really, really do like their additions. I just think they're not additions that they're not additions that are going to help them immediately. And I think my major worry for the players themselves is I don't necessarily know that this is a squad where those players go in and develop to their best of ability right now. And that's the real concerning thing. But I mean, like I said, it's almost like these are players that can bet in and do really well and make you a lot of money if you're in the championship. And so like, that's where I look at this and I'm like, these are like signings. Like if I'm looking for players that I can bring in and sell off for a lot of money in the future, these are players I bring in for that. But like, that's not what you want to hear as a Southampton fan, a Southampton supporter. That's not what you want to hear. I think I'm in agreement with Gally personally. I think that like I say dark horse. I don't even think they're a dark horse, but they're my team that I put in the relegation out of the top 3. They're absolutely the side that if I had to choose, it would be a side that I could see going down next year.
Yeah, I see a battle as well. I think like some of these guys, to your guys' point, if they walked into a squad, if they were added onto a team like West Ham or Villa or somewhere like that, 1 at a time or even like 2 at a time, I think it would be like give them a reason and an environment to like, improve in and have time to have their impact and stuff like that. I just don't know if Southampton provides that scenario for them. So having said that, sounds like pessimistic all around. But Gally, let's start with you in terms of predictions for Southampton. Where do you see them ending up?
They will not finish between 9th and 12th, because that's where I have every other club in this whole entire division finishing.
We can cross that off. Yeah.
I'm gonna throw it out. I'm gonna throw it out right now. I have them finishing 18th and being relegated. Southampton's run in the Premier League ends, and the folks at St. Mary's and on the South Coast do not have a problem because they'll get to have their derby next year with Bournemouth in the Championship.
How about you, Bickler? I have a tough time kind of keeping them out as well. As I look at the other teams, I'm trying to predict, which team they would do better at. I have them like 17, 18 fighting that battle. If anything, as far as I'm concerned, if anything saves them, it's the experience of being in the Premier League and having players who, battled similar battles in the past and know the Premier League and have that experience. But aside from that, I agree that it's going to be a tough battle for them. Where do you have them?
Yeah, I don't want to sound like an echo chamber, and we love to disagree on here, but I think they're going to get relegated. I just don't see a situation where their defense improves, and I don't see a situation where they get enough free kicks to put James Ward-Prowse over the top and get a goal.
Yeah, it relies a lot on him, unfortunately. So I know Southampton fans will not like hearing this, but I think we have a tough season. We're predicting a tough season ahead for them with possible relegation.